And we keep it rolling on a Thursday night. Larry Krueger with you on the Sports Leader. And we go to the UMA guest line for one of our favorites. Matt Barrows does a great job covering the Niners and has for a while. Now he's doing it for The Athletic, and he's with us to talk about all things Niners, including Nick Martin. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Larry? Are you gearing up for draft season? I think it's going to be
Yes.
an interesting one.
Yes. The answer is yes. I'm already kind of geared up, but I gotta take my foot off the gas. This is when I like to watch. I do spend a lot of time watching bowl games and college football, and I got a good feeling for who I like right about now. And then everything that happens from this point forward, I just try to not let it impact me too much, because these workouts don't mean a whole lot, and these meetings don't mean a whole lot. But I do like to keep track of like who the Niners are meeting with, and Steph Sanchez does a great job if you're following in the offseason of doing this kind of whole accounting of who they've met with. And I'll give you the first one, Matt. They've met with an edge rusher named Michael Heldman out of Central Michigan, who had 19 and a half career sacks, including 10 and a half this year. So Michael Heldman is on their radar.
All right. What are we looking at for Heldman? Second, third, fourth?
I think he's a day three guy. Day three guy.
Okay.
But a productive guy out of the
day
MAC.
Three guys are good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a day two guy that in Nick Martin, because it was like, yeah, Nick Martin's out of the concussion protocol, and then the next day I saw it attached to you saying, no, he is indeed not out of the concussion protocol. Either way, if he was or wasn't, it's very concerning. He hurt himself, I believe, in November. It's now January, almost February. What can you tell us about Nick Martin and what he's going through?
Yeah, well, when John Lynch said that, I think he hedged it I don't want to get this wrong, but I think he's out of the concussion protocol. So I followed up with the 49ers, and the answer was, well, he's not quite out of the concussion protocol. It's all moving in the right direction, but obviously they're not pushing him too hard because he had trouble getting back on the field. He kept on having symptoms after that November 30 concussion. So that was against the Cleveland Browns. That's how far back that concussion occurred. And he would make it back through a couple of the steps in the protocol and then would have symptoms and would kind of start at the bottom again. So after that happened a couple of times, I think that they've been very cautious with him. I will tell you that in those maybe the last week and a half of practices, he was one of those guys that was always out there running on a side field. And so that's one of the final steps of the concussion protocol. So I think if he made it that far and wasn't falling backwards at all, I think that was a good sign. And again, they may just not be wanting to kind of push him beyond that, or maybe the simple fact is that the very final step is contact. When no one's around, that's hard to kind of replicate. So that could be what they're waiting for to give him that final clearance.
Do you have any sense that they're disappointed in him? I mean, he was their third round pick. They had seemed very challenged at this position throughout the year, and yet it seemed like it was almost like put anybody but Nick in. Like possibly if you and I had run down there for him, I didn't get the feeling that they wanted to play him when he wasn't around. I didn't get the feeling they wanted to be asked questions about him. I'm getting a very weird vibe, and yet he's very, very athletic, explosive. He was a very productive player at Oklahoma State. I don't know what to make of this. What do you make of his rookie year?
I think that they drafted him. Remember, they drafted him after a year with Devondre Campbell playing that weak side spot. And Devondre Campbell was an unmitigated disaster at that spot. Wasn't very good on the field, and then threw a tantrum when he was replaced. They lost Trey Greenlaw in free agency, and Dee Winters, frankly, hadn't been very reliable. And I think that they decided, okay, we can't rely on Dee Winters. Let's go find a weak side linebacker, somebody who can be the Trey Greenlaw of the future. Then D. Winters ends up, I wrote this several times. I thought he was the best, or at least the most consistent player, offense and defense, throughout the spring and summer. So, I mean, he became somebody that a rookie couldn't surpass. The question I have is, okay, if that's the case, then why not have Nick Martin play that strong side spot? That would give him, a you know a dozen to 20 snaps a game. So it would be a good way to kind of get him into the mix, get him some defensive snaps. But they never did. They were always intent on having him practice and be ready at weak side. And maybe they thought that, okay, D. Winters is the guy that got hurt several times in 2024. It's such an important position for us that we need to have somebody at the ready. And that's why they didn't mess around with giving him snaps somewhere else. And then the concussion happened, and he was unavailable from that point forward. So I think that's what happened. D. Winters is entering the final year of his contract. I mean, I don't think that they're going to pay big money to retain him. They'd probably let him go in 27. And then that they would be able to kind of follow through with that plan. But I would want D. Winters, Fred Warner, and Nick Martin on the field if everyone's healthy, because there's just so much speed there. And you saw it in practice, even just the basic linebacker drills where they're hitting the sled. He hits the sled like a wasp, like coming in for a sting. He's very fast and hits with a huge impact because he's moving at such a fast rate. So I hope that that the concussion stuff seems scary. I hope that in the spring it's all in the rearview mirror. Then we can kind of see this guy in action.
It's interesting. Robert Saleh, I saw a list today for the guys who are finalists for the assistant coach of the year, and he's not on the list. And it's like, what? They almost made it to the conference championship game, and they were they had duct tape and baling wire, and it was just unbelievable how he kept this thing together. That being said, he's in Tennessee. He got a 5-year deal. I'm sure he's happy with it. But there's also a lot of speculation that he's going to take some members of the defensive staff with him to Tennessee. Who do you think is most likely to go with Robert? Do you have any idea of who potentially could bail to Tennessee?
I don't think any of the primary coaches would. The defensive line coach, yeah, Johnny Holland at linebacker, and Bullocks at secondary. I mean, because unless those guys are calling plays, I mean, there wouldn't be room for a promotion, I don't think. I mean, KJ Wright would jump out to me. His title the last couple of years was defensive quality control coach, which is an entry level position. But he obviously worked really closely with the linebackers. He got a lot of praise in recent weeks because he was the guy that would get these linebackers ready to play in a game. I mean, some of these guys showed up in December. We're talking about Garrett Wallow and Eric Hendricks wasn't much earlier than that, and so it was up to KJ Wright to really teach them the defense and get them so that they could be effective in games, and he did a wonderful job at that. Obviously, the guys excelled in that game in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago. So I wonder whether KJ Wright would be somebody Saleh looks at for. I don't know if he's ready for linebackers coach. I mean, it seems like that was the D'Amico Ryan's track here. He came in and was supposed to be quality control, and then who was it? Ken Norton went up to Seattle unexpectedly, and they had to, make D'Amico the linebackers coach, and they were hesitant to do that. He'd never done it before, and of course he was fantastic at it, and then became the coordinator. So I think that KJ Wright has the same ability. So that's the one that stands out, and there might be a couple of other ones. But I was thinking Colt Anderson, who's the assistant special teams coach, and
Right.
He's got a lot of esteem, but he just came from Tennessee. He was the Titans special teams coordinator in 2024 and was fired after 1 year. So I don't think that would go over really well with the Titans. And I think that Saleh has retained the incumbent Fossil, the incumbent special teams coach there. So I don't think that they have to worry about any of their special teamers going.
Is the defensive coordinator interviews going to be an exercise? Is it going to Gus Bradley, or if Kyle can have anybody, would he prefer a Jim Schwartz? Would he prefer Raheem Morris? Would he prefer somebody else? Or do you think it's? I'm fine going with Gus Bradley. I know there's a lot of people that have thrown out a lot of stats saying Gus can't do this, Gus can't do that. I saw we get a chance to talk to the players. It seemed like to a man they were always very impressed by what Gus could show them and the knowledge that he had, especially the secondary. I'm fine with Gus Bradley taking over this role. I think Shanahan is as well, but what's your read on it?
Yeah, I mean, he said as much yesterday. Shanahan did. He's the top internal candidate. It's obvious that he's a great candidate to be, everyone looking from outside, and it's obvious to us as well. It sounds like that's going to be the case. They have to do their Rooney Rule interviews, and I think that if he could have it back, maybe Shanahan wouldn't be quite so honest with us about that. And I appreciate the honesty, but they do have to take the steps and interview minority candidates for that position. And maybe somebody comes along that you really like, and just has charisma and everything else that you want. Sometimes they do that, taking notes and kind of keeping that in their back pocket for, what if Gus Bradley does so well here that he becomes a head coach in a couple of years, and then you have your Rolodex, if you will, full of potential candidates. So that still has to happen. Probably take a week and a half. So maybe just before the Super Bowl, we'll find out who the new DC is officially.
We're talking to Matt Barrows on the Uma guest line. Niners just finished up their season in a brutal way, really losing to Seattle and getting dominated really twice by their division opponent. And I saw something today that 7 of the last 8 teams to eliminate the Niners in the playoffs went on to win the Super Bowl. What do you think? Is this the Seahawks? The Seahawks going to make it 8 of 9? I would say that it looks pretty good for them.
Yeah, being home and being rested. I mean, not only did they have a bye in week 1, and not only did they play on Saturday, they were sitting their starters by the midway through the fourth quarter.
Right, played half a game.
They played that. They only had to play half a game. So I mean, maybe that's too much rest. And the Rams come in and are rolling early in the game, and the Seahawks have to play catch up. But I think the electricity in that building, which to me was very reminiscent of the Legion of Boom days, the heyday for the Seattle Seahawks, is going to pump everybody up, get everybody ready to play. So yeah, I think the Seahawks win that. It'll be interesting though. I mean, it's a really good offense. Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams. That's a good triumvirate. I just feel like all the momentum is with the Seahawks right now.
Kawakami's got a great piece out right now, and Tim always is said today that if both Justin Jefferson and Max Crosby are traded this March and the Niners get neither of them, it would be an off-season failure, which is, I understand why he would say that he'd have interest in the Niners getting those guys, but I don't know. I just don't think that this year at this point in time for this franchise, the all-in for one player idea is, it always sounds good, and it definitely, I'm sure, gets clicks, and it's a great thing to talk about on shows like this. But I don't think the Niners are in position for that right now. I see a team that has more needs and can't really do that. They can't pour all their assets into one great defensive end, even if they got a great one like Crosby or one awesome receiver, even if they got the best, right, in Jefferson. I don't know. How do you see it? Do you think the Niners should go for that one big one big killing and get that one big name guy, or is that not the approach this year?
Well, Tim and I went over that last night in our podcast, and he was the aggressive one, and he painted me in the corner of being the guy that had to kind of critique it. So I'm well versed in this
You're ready for
conversation.
this question.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this question. I mean, my take was that this was a team 1 year ago today that decided it needed to get younger and it needed to get cheaper, and so they cut all those veterans. They decided that they wanted to, get as many draft picks as possible. We're going to regenerate through the draft, which is exactly what the Los Angeles Rams did. I think beginning 3 years ago. They didn't sign any, highfalutin free agents or make any big trades. What they did, this is after Stafford, of course. What they did was really nail the draft, and they found guys like Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams and their defensive tackle and their linebacker, sort of not in the bargain bin, but moderately priced and middle of the draft. And I feel like that's the model that the 49ers are using. Now, Tim's argument, and I think this is a good one, is that Trent Williams is not a spring chicken, and George Kittle is not a spring chicken, and Christian McCaffrey is not a spring chicken. All these guys are in their 30s with Williams looking at 40 pretty soon. So that if you feel like you're going to win a Super Bowl with this team, how many years can you wait before you make a big move? And it's possible that I mean Justin Jefferson I think would they would want way too much, and I think that the 49ers are leery of high-priced wide receivers and what can happen. And you pay all this money to one guy and he gets a knee injury and, where are you left? Crosby, though, is intriguing because he wants out of Las Vegas, pending a coaching change. He's got a good track record of being healthy. And maybe you can get him for, not a first-round pick or something that makes sense. And I think that Crosby would want to play in San Francisco as well. I mean, be opposite Nick Bosa, play for Kyle Shanahan, play for Chris Kasurik. I'm sure you've heard the story about Kasurik's unfortunate, train station interview with Crosby when he was coming out in the draft, and how aggressive Kasurik was, and John Lynch had to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's not how we do it here. We like to have a conversation." And Kasurik, as you know from watching practices, can get very easily into attack dog mode and wanted to challenge Max Crosby. And that was, of course, Kasurik's first draft with the 49ers. So there's a good backstory there, and I think they all have kind of laughed about it since then at joint practices and preseason games and whatnot. So, I mean, it would be, I think, a nice fit, a nice culture fit, and you wouldn't have a question at defensive end anymore. You would have three good ones once Mykel Williams comes back, and then maybe Mykel Williams sliding a lot more inside on passing downs.
Jennings seemed very emotional all day, and it's not. I don't think it's because he's got great warmth for you or I or anybody in the room. I just think that he feels like this might be the end. Has he did he play to a level, and is the market such that there's no hope that he's coming back? I mean, he had that kind of vibe, like this is the last time we're going to see him, kind of a vibe. Like he knows he's going to get an offer that exceeds where the Niners are willing to go, and even though this is the only team he's ever known, and he all things equal would rather stay, it sounds like he's going to go for the bag. What do you think?
Yeah, he just went through this process in the summer and couldn't come up with a long-term deal. So I think he's frustrated by that, and I think he probably knows what the 49ers value him at. Which should be high because he's been their best, most consistent wide receiver the last 2 seasons now. So it's not like it was a flash in the pan in 2024. He was doing the same thing in 25 and actually played a lot of games injured, led the team in touchdown catches, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't look like it's going to be a great market for wide receivers, the free agency market. There might be some trades. AJ Brown could get traded. Um, there's some other names, Xavier Legette, for the Panthers. He might be a very low cost trade. But I'm just saying that there seems to be more wide receiver need than really proven bodies out there. Robert Saleh might be interested in Jauan Jennings, a Tennessee native who played at the University of Tennessee with the Tennessee Titans. That would seem to make a lot of sense. But I don't know. I mean, we saw Brandon Ayuk cry 2 years ago during the same function, and everybody thought that he was definitely coming back, that the 49ers would reach a contract extension with him, but he was kind of weepy and didn't know what the future was like. Ended up getting the extension, and now is gone. So I mean, trying to predict the future on any of this is a fool's errand. I'm just saying that peers don't necessarily mean that the guy is gone in free agency.
It's funny. We have one view of the roster and who's staying and who's going, and then internally they sometimes have a different view of the roster and who's staying and who's going. I had a couple people around the Niners, not John Lynch, but a couple people around the Niners whisper to me in Seattle after the game that they thought that this offseason that 49ers would trade Renardo Green and Ricky Pearsall. That they just didn't feel that Renardo fit personality wise, and that both guys were too valuable to cut, but that they thought this guy thought that they would wind up trading both those guys.
Ricky
What do you
Pearsall
make?
was the second one.
Yeah, Pearsall and Renardo Green were the two names that this guy said. What do you make of what happened on the field between Green and Shanahan? Shanahan spoke about it in general terms. Hey, we didn't like what happened on a certain play. We addressed it with him. But it seemed like it was a one-way conversation and a pretty angry conversation. What's your read on Renardo Green and also on Pearsall? I mean, one of the weird things that I thought Shanahan said during the presser was like he needs to work on getting back faster. I mean, that's an odd thing to work on. So, how do you feel about those two guys and where they stand?
I mean, I think that Shanahan loves Ricky Pearsall. I mean, I think that Shanahan evaluated Pearsall, fell in love with him during the 24 draft process. I think that love was bolstered by what he went through when he was shot in San Francisco. And I think that when Shanahan sees him at full capacity, he sees what he was envisioning when he was, watching him at Florida and thinking about the draft. Pearsall's issue is staying healthy, of course. And I thought that my read on what Shanahan said yesterday that he was defending Pearsall, that he basically said Ricky Pearsall had 4 games as Ricky Pearsall, and in those 4 games, Ricky Pearsall was fantastic. So once we get Ricky Pearsall back, we're gonna be fine with him at receiver. Bernardo Green, I mean, that was I felt like finally the defense had done something big, that they were going to force the Seahawks to punt deep in their own territory, and the offense was going to be able to do something with the ball and make it a game, and they just gave up that huge play to Cooper Cup. He's upset about that. Ronaldo Green didn't play it correctly. Shanahan wasn't the only coach on the sideline chirping at him afterwards. I mean, it was obvious to everybody who had messed up. I don't know what Green's kind of reaction or lack of a reaction means. It wasn't the first time he got a chewing out on the sideline this year. Remember, he
Right,
got
right.
baited into a personal foul against Trey McBride in that game in Arizona, and it was just the classic, retaliation penalty, and Shanahan lost his cool then too. So he's been in the doghouse a couple of times. Does that mean that they're going to trade him? I don't know. I would. Who's taking his spot? I mean, were you that inspired by Darrell Luter? During
No.
his time. So why create another issue for yourselves when you don't really have to? I think for the most part, Bernardo Green was pretty good this year. I think that Diamador Lenora was really good, and I think that Upton Stout was starting to look fantastic by the end of the year. The kind of only issue for me among that group is that the trend now seems to be what the Seahawks did, which is you find a big safety who can do a lot of things, and you never have to take him off the field. When you're in nickel, when you're in base, it's the same guy. And the 49ers definitely have a different look from nickel to base. I mean, you couldn't ask for two different players in Upton Stout and Luke Gifford this past season.
Well, they're playing more in their base. I mean, you could argue that the Niners' base is a 4-2-5 because that's really what they're in the most. Is that it's rare that they're in the true base, which would be the 4-3 with the four DBs. They're in that 4-2-5 in the nickel, which seems like a lot, and more. It seems like as every year goes by. A couple last ones before we let you go. If the ultimate question that you want to be able to get an answer for at a presser like this is a question that's for Jed, which is we just saw John Harbaugh get let go and he did nothing but win there. We saw Mike Tomlin never have a losing season and get let go. Now Kyle Shanahan is the longest tenured guy there is. How long does he got? How long does he have? I mean, we know the goals. We know the goals. At least the goal used to be win the Super Bowl. And I'm sure they would still state that it is the goal of the organization to win the Super Bowl, but they haven't done that. And they've gotten really close. So it's kind of a weird question because Shanahan, I think, is at the very top of his field. And I think Lynch is in the top half of the general managers in the game as well. So it's not like they're, oh my God, get rid of these guys. But nobody has forever. I'd love to know from Jed's perspective or from their perspective, how long do they have? How long should they have? How long do they think they need to get this thing accomplished and to win the Super Bowl? What do you think, Matt? I mean, do you think Jed's got an endless deal with Shanahan and Lynch, and they can kind of write their ticket? Do you think Jed's like they got one more year of not making the playoffs, and then they're on the hot seat? I mean, it's just nobody has forever in the NFL.
No, and this 26 will be the 10th season that they have together. I mean, that's a very easy number to comprehend. They've been here a decade, and you would have thought that they would have won a Super Bowl by now. I mean, they have how many Hall of Fame players do they have on the roster? They've got George Kittle, they've got Fred Warner, they've got Christian McCaffrey, they got Trent Williams. All of these guys can be wearing a gold jacket in the future, and to not win a Super Bowl during that period would be something. So there's that. The other part of it, though, is that I mean, look how this season ended. They were decimated by injuries in games, and then they went on the road and beat the defending Super Bowl champions in Philadelphia. They got annihilated in Seattle. No one's arguing that. But the sense after that game wasn't that, oh gosh, Kyle Shanahan blew it. This team blew it. The sense after that game was pride. That was the overarching feeling in the locker room, among the players, among the coaches, among the executives, et cetera, et cetera. And so when it was a weird, you wouldn't expect that reaction to a 41-6 loss to your division rivals who just kicked your butt 2 weeks earlier. But that was it. And I haven't talked to Jed about it, but I imagine he had the same feeling. That he was proud that his team made it as far as it did, considering the circumstances. My point is that I don't think that they're on the hot seat now, but 10 years is a long time. And that, if things fall apart, if, they lose the locker room, if something happens next year, I think then you start to, ask that question. But right now, if you're asking me on whatever today's date is, we played too many Saturday games recently, so I still don't know what day it is. But
January 22nd, 2026.
Yeah, January 22nd, 2026. Wow, that snuck up on me.
Seriously, you better throw out some of those things in the fridge.
I'd say that the bond is strong and probably as strong as it's been for a while. Now, is Shanahan looking for an extension? That usually gets kind of Jed York and the people in charge of the purse strings nervous, and that could cause problems. But I think if that wasn't kind of part of the equation, I think that Jed York would say that he's very, very happy with his GM and his head coach.
Let's finish on an up note, a light note. I saw the Niner rookie dinner. The tab was $28,934.62. Any truth to the rumor that the Athletic is offered to pay for that?
It's coming out of Matt Barrows' salary. Yeah, Vic and I have to bunk up on the road next year. Wow,
who is paying that?
Who's
paying that?
That is a hefty bill. I mean,
there's a lot of booze in there. There's a lot of shots.
There's got to be a lot of booze in there, and you usually kind of slip it in front of one guy. But that's the question I have: who did they pull the prank on, and just kind of give that guy the bill and have him freak out in front of everybody?
Well, I wonder if it was Sam O put it out on his Twitter. So I wonder if it was a D-line dinner. And it looked like the bill was maybe going to CJ West. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense because they've done that in the past for sure.
That's a big
have
bill.
The big D-line. Well, I mean, imagine those guys aren't ordering the small pasta dish. They're ordering they're ordering the protein dish there.
I'll have a T-bone and a side of T-bone. Thank you.
Exactly.
Matty, great stuff as usual. Enjoy your off season. We will dig into the draft as April gets closer, and we'll talk a lot between now and then. But thanks again for jumping on KMBR.
You're welcome. Watch that Jeremy Bernard tape and tell me what you think.
I will. I see Anquan Bolden. There we go. All right, Matt Barrows checking in from The Athletic.